All right, all right, all right, all right. Welcome to the first episode of Logic versus Faith, where we're going to kind of dive into this contradiction and also merging of these ideas and these unions of congregations of people within both the scientific community and the religious community. And I'm sure there's so many people that kind of hold my understanding of this being the same form of understanding, but from different angles. And I wanted to express and understand this deeper, so I invited my very amazing and spiritually enlightened entrepreneur friend, Franz, or Bliss, as he's known, to kind of join me on this journey of understanding and learning between these topics, between these two different understandings of information. So would you like to introduce yourself?
For sure, man. Thank you so much. So as he said, my name is Franz Schwennicke. And to make it short, I'm just a 24 years old kid that suffered a shit ton. I've had so many depressions and so many moments in my life where I was hopeless, where I had only darkness in my mind. And those events really brought me some fundamental understanding on life and on myself, which I hope tonight can bring you some peace. Because at the end of the day, this podcast, regardless of the information we're going to share tonight, our intention is for you to have peace in your mind and bliss in your heart. And what we're going to share today is for the fundamental basic understanding of faith versus logic, science versus religion. And in this world nowadays, we think that they're separate. They think they're not one and the same. And the understanding that we're trying to provide here tonight is the realization that they are one and the same. And when duality becomes unity, then peace and bliss is yours forever.
Very well said. All right. So we're going to start this off by understanding kind of the basis of where these two things have come from, right? Because science stemmed up as a basis of wanting to understand that external experience and an understanding of the base physics and the workings of how all of this happens. And some of the base people who brought it up were very on to the point, Ptolemy with the Platonic solids and the geometrical basis, the fundamental basis of the reality which we live in. And he basically found that with little to no technology, right? So, and it's something that we almost overlook now, but it's still the basis of everything that we know now. So it's interesting that what we did in starting to come into that logic and that science was enter into a objective understanding of what we were experiencing, right? Trying to decode it, of what we are seeing externally. And then with the religious, it was trying to understand what was internally happening, right? In the very beginning of religion, there's that mystic kind of appropriation that happened, especially within the early religions, where you have this not being able to explain an event or a phenomena, and then having to give it a different association, even a different God, right? And to assign a different entity to what that is. And if we come into the base understanding of, for example, the energetic notion of what something is, right? It's one vibrational frequency. So if there were to be, so to speak, an entity of justice or of joy, it would be one specific vibrational frequency that resonates that perfect harmonic structure of joy, of a specific virtue, of anything at all, really. And the same happens for water. So if there were to be, aka a god for water, it would also just be a specific vibration, which comes from a specific shape. So it's interesting how even in the beginning, the subjective mind was still creating correct characterizations. It was just still out of focus because there was a lack of information. There was and that created entropy in how we react to the situation.
So would you say that ignorance and arrogance are the two biggest vices of this planet, of why this experience that we're living now can be represented as a hellish experience, especially if you watch the news? By the way, don't, but yes. Would you say that? Ignorance and arrogance?
Yes.
Ignorance of not knowing the truth rationally and emotionally, and arrogance in the belief that you know better than life, that you know better than what's going to happen, to try to project your own opinion and belief.
I would actually give them, those are two very triggering words. And I'd actually give them two very neutral words, because it's a neutral veil that just naturally is fallen, cast upon any sentient being that's just awakening, and it's judgment and opinion.
Beautiful.
Right? Because you create a judgment of perfection.
Yeah, so that's arrogance. That's arrogance, would you say?
Exactly.
Yeah,
it is arrogance.
exactly.
And arrogance is when you're like way over on the scale, but everyone's still judging perfection. So you have to realize that even if you wouldn't describe yourself as an arrogant individual, even if you're not, some of the ways you're perceiving the energy may be arrogant and just detracting from the overall experience that you could be having. And in the same way, when you create opinion, what you're doing is you're saying that there's something different than what it could be.
Exactly. So that's ignorance.
Ignorance, right? Because all it is, it's happening. The moment is continually unfolding. There's not much we can do about it as
100%.
And be a witness.
But as you know, I love triggering people, and be aware that when this podcast, when we share something and something gets triggered in you, it's a trigger is the universe letting you know that you still are holding on to a limiting belief that is blocking you from experiencing the highest of you. So be aware of your trigger, because they're your greatest teacher. And so when I walk in the street and I meet someone, or someone says something on Facebook and I get triggered, I take a second and observe that trigger and see what is the belief from which this trigger arises. And then I heal this belief, and freer I become every time I do this. So please, take a step back and look within. So my Jacob, first thing I want to say, and I love what you just said, and it's beautiful, because for me this podcast is a beautiful manifestation of the purpose of life. And the purpose of life, in my opinion, is objective and subjective. And the way I see it from my subjective, and it is my purpose, but it may not be yours, but it may be interesting for you to know mine, it is to master the relationship. Master the relationship between the left brain and the right brain, between the higher self and the lower self, between the feminine energy and the masculine energy, between the religion and the science. We are too into the extreme as a society because we lack identity. We so want to hold on to an identity that when we think that we find some bit of truth in science or religion, we think, oh my God, this is all, and the rest is not true. And so I invite you to really see this as mastering the relationship between duality, between the two opposites. And when you master those relationships, then that is only when you have access to unity consciousness. And before I explain that, I want to define what unity consciousness is for me. And unity consciousness is this moment where there is no thought, emotion, and action, and there is. And so you have those moments where, for example, you dance or you speak and you don't think and then feel it and say, or you don't think and feel and do. It's just one. Is you just are, you just act, you don't think between you speak, you don't think before you do, you just are, because you have entered into that higher state of consciousness that all the mystics and saints and scientists that got to that level call unity consciousness, Christ consciousness, Buddha consciousness, Krishna consciousness. It is the same thing to represent this unity consciousness when you have dealt with all your belief, with all your opinion, with all your judgment, with all your attachment, with all your resistance, and you become free. You become a vessel. You become a free vessel where life, the energy, the vibe that we all feel can enter you and can expand in you. Because every time the energy of life come into you and you reject it with a belief, an opinion, or a judgment, you are blocking the flow. And the less attachment and judgment and resistance you have about those things, the more life is going to be able to flow through you. And that is when you feel very alive. Take a second and observe that feeling that you have when you cuddle with your partner in bed, or when you make love to them. And experience that again right now, the peace that you feel in the arms of your beloved and lovers. Why do you feel that peace? Because that person transcends you, transcends the mind, transcends the mind that holds all the judgment and attachment and resistance that is blocking you from experiencing the highest of you.
Wow, wow, wow. That was such a true point, man. That's so on point. Because when you're with someone and you truly care about that person, it becomes not about you for just a brief moment, right? And some people, they devote their lives and they're all like this. And some people, again, it's always that bell curve. There's a spectrum. So a lot of people, they do live in the middle. They do a lot for others and they do a lot for themselves. And it's important. It's a good balance. Pramila always says, air mask. You do yourself first, find spiritual clarity, find spiritual upliftment, and then you share the mask. Because if you're depleted, you're dead. Like, if your is falling down, and you're creating distress in your life because of how others act against you.
And may I share, I'm going to add something which I have found actually today. I had this realization today, and I realized that everything I do it for me. And so from a perspective that can sound very selfish, but from my understanding, the essence of who I am resides in all. And so when I see others, I see myself. And so when I say that I do for me, meaning the me, the perception that I have of me is less about this only body and became more global, became everything is me, because in essence, you are everything. And so the day you will realize that the essence of your being resides in all things and all beings across the universes, then you can play. Then you can play at full capacity, because this podcast at the end of the day is to help you to play at full capacity, because we know how powerful you are. We know how powerful you are, but we also know how doubtful your mind is. And the reason why we know that is because we have found our own power and we have observed our mind trying to trick us into believing that we're a worthless piece of shit.
One of the most interesting things about that power is it's there at all times, and you can have it at any time. But the second you try and grasp it, it's like water.
Water,
when you try and grasp water, it goes straight out of your hand.
Beautiful.
You never sustain it if you're trying to take it.
Beautiful.
So only if you give it and you give it back, and there's a specific way in which you do this. You give into that moment, right? You give in and you give your energy back to love, support, create peace, create harmony as a harmonistic resonator in life, right? Through your body with the natural phi harmonics and scaling of ratio that occur in your body. And by doing that, just participating in that, you're enacting into the natural cause and effect ratio and basically clearing karma.
It's beautiful. And I'm just going to give a practical example of how that's so true. Have you ever had a girlfriend or a boyfriend that gives you so much love, and because it's so much love and it feels so good, you try to grasp it. You try to control him or her, and you try to be attached and resistant. Like you just try to grasp this love. And generally what happens is this other being gets sick of you and breaks up with you because you're trying to grab the essence, the love that it is giving you, instead of just allowing to come through you and then to be given back to the world. Instead of, for example, and I'm just going to go off topic here, but you want to be rich and we all want to be wealthy, but the secret to wealth is so easy, is allow the universe to give you the money, but be a vessel. Don't grab to money. Allow the universe to just give you money, and then allow yourself to just give it right back. And that's why I always say, whatever you make, give 25% away to the universe. You feel a good cause, a good charity, even start your own charity, whatever, but give it to selfless service, because then the universe wants to give you more. It's logic. The universe is looking for beings that are empty vessels that it can push and give so much love and so much wealth and so much bliss and so much joy, because it knows that being will do what it was meant to do, which is sharing it and not trying to grasp it like water and losing it.
Is a perfect example where your mind sees faith and my mind sees logic. See, from my eyes, I believe that you'd have to create that state of joy,
Yep.
of synergy, of dielectric connection
Yep.
with the energy in life, with the value that will create that wealth that you can give away like that. Because you
And
already have that affinity,
beautiful.
dedication to the virtues. And through the dedication to the virtues, you've changed chi, you've cultivated an energy, and you've refined its quality to a higher form of energy. So it's
Brother,
resonating.
yes. Yes, but remember that you never create energy, you generate it. And so the realization,
you refine it. So energy, chi is constantly arising, right?
Yep,
It's
yep.
there and it's gone. It's there and it's gone. In the same way, like the water, you can. But while you can't capture chi, you can refine chi into gong, and you do refine chi. Like a generator, you have to keep generating chi. That happens
Yep.
constantly. But you
Yep.
have to also refine it to create gong, and that's almost looking at your life and the things that have happened in your life, and finding where there was the problem, what the cause to that problem is, and it's generally a virtue, something that you keep about yourself, and you something about yourself which is needs to be changed and ingrained into how the universe naturally works.
Mm-hmm.
And then when you make that shift, you create the gong, because you're shifting that lower based energy into a higher refined virtue,
Bro,
which you hold into
yes.
your life.
Thank you for sharing that, because that brought up something very interesting in me, and it's the reason for the entire human suffering. Oh, that's a big, wait, what? Am I going to share the secret to why we suffer as humanity? Am I going to really do that? Wait, should I? Jacob, should I? Okay, I'm going to. So, take a second, take a deep breath, because I'm going to share some wisdom, you know? I mean, the wisdom doesn't come from me. Again, I'm a channel for that wisdom. I'm not attached to this wisdom. I'm not identifying with that wisdom, but listen closely. The reason why we suffer as a society is because we believe that we need to look for love outside of ourselves. And so we believe that love is something outside. And so we search our entire life to create love, to create an experience of love, to create an experience of having a girlfriend and she gives me love, or having an experience of creating a good job where I have the respect of my peers, and so I have their loves. And so that's why we suffer, because the simple, not yet realized truth that love is not something you are in, it is something you are. And I'm going to repeat it one more time, and take a deep breath with me. Love is not something you are in. It is something, it is who you are. Love is who you are. So stop trying to seek love outside yourself. Why would you do that when who you are, the essence of your being, is pure, infinite love? Mic drop. Yeah, baby girl, we're here. We landed. Oh, yeah. I love you, Jacob. And thank you for listening.
Of course, bro. That's words that need to be heard.
Yes.
So, that love, it's interesting, because I'll just go ahead. I'll straight relate it back to logic. That love is a physical force, right?
Mm-hmm.
If we can understand just the movement that humans have made, right, from when they started, we continued to fuck. Till fucking, kept fucking, made more of us, kept fucking, made more of us, kept fucking. Started to put some rules and some general boundaries and structures around this fucking collecting wealth. And we started fucking and collecting wealth. And, okay, so this love, though, is what keeps us coming together, fucking, and creating a next baby. That love, and also all of that fucking, and then until we started creating castles, now we have skyscrapers, all of that was created through love.
A question, brother. Would you say that the desire, imagine you see a pretty girl in the streets and you just want to give her.
I'm not talking about, it is exactly kind of like that desire. I'm not talking about just every time they had sex, it was love. I'm talking about every single action they take was in the advantage of their own love. All the time, every single individual was in the advantage of taking control of their own love in this situation they could. When they were peasants, they couldn't do much, right? Like, that's why kings were so egotistical and they did everything. And I mean, without even getting into like the annoyances and the grievances of structure and how structure needs to be changed, just the understanding that everything that has propelled us so far has been love as a force, as a literal force.
Oh, as a force, because in my opinion, and that's interesting, because that's a faith, and that's not in the science perspective, and I'm interested to hear your opinion about that. And someday I heard someone says that, and it really transcended me, and it is, love is the only truth, everything else is illusion. Would you agree with that on a science perspective? On a logical perspective?
Yes, it could very well be true that is true. The thing with science right now is that we have the entity of entropy, right? Even in the Maxwell, I think the Gibbs equation, the entropy, the entropic states there, and the amount of entropy determines like different things about actual properties. Now, entropy is a lack of.
Yes. Before you hear, if you hearing that podcast, a lot of words that he's using, I'm not even familiar with them. Like he's very far in very advanced, and it's honorable to you, and it's beautiful of your knowledge and your wisdom is so far away. I'm just saying, if you don't understand a few words that he say, I don't even understand. Like, I understand the gist of what you're saying, but a few words sometimes I'm like, wait, what does it even mean? Like, but and it's beautiful. It's beautiful, but just to our listeners, yeah.
Next time, ask what a word means, and I'll just
100%. Thank you. Yeah, perfect. Yeah, tell me.
So, the entropy.
Yeah.
Right? And what entropy is disorder. It's chaos.
Yeah.
Right. And it's a lack of information, because in a system where all information is known, there's no chaos.
And would you say that lack of information is lack of information is lack of light? Because light is information. Would you say that?
Let's not take that step just yet, because
sure.
Because when we think of the actual stasis of life, which is, and this has been found by Nassim Haramein, who basically explains that through the mathematics which he has found, and this has generated a closer relation to the most recent size of a proton that's been taken. So his mathematics are correct and closer than any other mathematics today. And they basically say that the more than the mass of the universe is contained within the proton. Proton, which means that every proton has about the same mass as a black hole. So it means that every proton is a black hole. And what this creates is this ability for it actually to be a information network grid where that's information returning. And there's a certain amount of information that can be on the outside, which happens to be something like the amount of different patterns that can be on the outside within because it's like the size of the proton versus the size of the smallest increment, which is a maximum length. And then you just cover all that. And then, so the information relayed, and that's how you calculate the density, right? That's how you calculate the density of that proton, and it is then a black hole. So it's showing then that every proton is a black hole, and every black hole is connected, and that's how information is constantly shared through a feedback loop in the universe of intelligent energy and connection. And he's now shown how this is kind of could be very plausible with mathematics and with science and with experimentation. So what this then means, right, is there is never a state at which there is entropy, because in the real dynamics of the universe, all information is obtained. Now, in the mind of man, where we have not obtained full omniscience into being able to...
What's omniscient?
Omniscience is knowing everything.
Okay. But would you say that knowing everything is without knowledge? Because I read this today. Know without knowledge. Because I think it's interesting. Wait, let me share a second, and I will bring it back to you. Because you have two ways of knowing. You have because ultimately, and that's what I want us to realize, is whether you go through faith or science, at the end of the day, the goal is to know the truth. We don't want to believe the truth. We just want to know the truth. I mean, we want to know what the fuck is happening here. How can I be like standing, drinking some delicious tea, making love to my girl? How can this feel so good? Like how? Like no. I want to know, okay? So, in my opinion, for example, I don't need to know, I don't need to understand everything about life, and I don't understand the details of it. And I think people are too stuck in trying to understand every little detail of it, and they are missing the magic of it because they're trying to like observe the magic and understand the magic from a rational perspective, from a linear perspective. And what I see when I walk in the forest, for example, I see trees and bushes, and I don't see anything linear. I mean, when I'm on the road, yeah, I see linear, but that's from the human. But when I see nature, I don't see anything linear. So why would we try to understand life linearly, completely rationally, without by the realization that nothing is linear in life? So I think, in my opinion, knowledge and logic is can get you far, but not to the deepest of it.
Literally, as you just described it, logic is linear.
Yeah, exactly. But life is not linear.
Exactly. Because, for example, here's just a small example.
Yeah.
Logically, without a doubt, you will plant the seed, you will water the seed will sprout, and then it will grow, and then it will produce fruit later. Now, what we know from life is maybe only 20 of the seeds produce.
Mm-hmm.
Right? And maybe it takes some of them 3 days and some of them 8 days.
Mm-hmm.
Right? And we actually, they're in the real relationship, the logic can be propitiated in time differently, so to speak, almost, right? Where the logic that it is carried out and should carry out may carry out in way. It's like in the same way. It's like you may be looking for abundance in your life, you may not even realize there's abundance in your life, and you're looking at it from the wrong way. So you're not even seeing the ways in which abundance is pouring through your life. You're not opening yourself to that abundance, which is blocking your ability to create abundance in other ways, in other factors of that.
And so my question to you, Jacob, is: do you think that logic can get you, can make you understanding the full truth, the full picture about life, or do you think you need faith and logic? Do you believe you can have one without the other, or you need both?
You can logically know the whole picture.
Yeah.
But if you
or you can know with faith without trying to understand it, just knowing. Just you don't understand every detail of it, but you just know.
Faith brings like an underlying energetic momentum. It's like you always push through because you always have faith. That's almost like the
exactly.
Like to say that the emotions are almost like the motor always.
Yeah. So right? Would you say that scientists, like people that tell me?
The logic is like the mind, is like the roadmap.
Mm-hmm.
Like the GPS. You still need to have the GPS, and you still need to have a spiritual GPS to know where you're going. And that's why there are fundamental codes already built into the nature of how it's all fitting together. And that is your spiritual GPS naturally. Certain harmonics that are found that just exist.
So would you say that everyone has some level of faith, and some people call it hope, but everyone, you know what I mean?
Even the people that don't have killed themselves through suicide.
Yeah, no, you're right. I think that's the end of it. That's the end of hope, of faith. It's just
3 porn stars, but it's also the end of logic. It is. It's just like
it is. No, it is. It is.
You don't think you should be here anymore, you leave. It's the seed of life, and what that means. We're gonna wrap up this little episode we created. Don't worry. Stay tuned. Hit subscribe. There's gonna be a couple more coming. But what I want to leave you with is just to be open to that mindset of understanding that there's both that subjective and external objective experience that we're having, and that everyone's having. And we have to really come together to learn about this, come together to collectively understand this. And we can't build blockages between different understandings. It's like, if anyone disagrees with me on this podcast, that's fine. Write about it in the comments and describe really what is the truth. Because at the end of the day, like, what everyone's looking for is the truth, or objective truth that can be in any way understood or expressed by everyone, because it has to be a completely common, subjective and objective truth. And there is one that is shared between all of us. So it is the nature of that we are just simply seeking for.
And the way I want to end it is, by making you understand that this podcast is very different to all the debates that I've watched or read online. And the simple difference is those debates are about finding who is right. There is generally a yogi or a scientist, and they're just trying to find who is right. But here, this is not it. We're trying to find what is the truth. What is the truth? It's not about a debate between Jacob and I. We're not saying I have the truth or Jacob has the truth. We're saying as a collective, as a humanity, let's all work together to find the truth. And so please write your comments. You don't agree with something, say it, because we're not saying what we're saying is the truth. We're just saying that's our understanding at this level of our lives, and we are interested in your perspective. Let me finish. And so really understanding that this is not an argument to find who is right. It is a conversation to find what is the truth, what is right for us as a humanity to understand, to evolve. Okay, so make it clear.
To this conversation that we've had,
yeah,
is the simple creation of the truth. Because
beautiful.
Truth is never in one individual, and the true truths that exist are in the truths that are shared. And those are the only ones, the truths that can be shared, and those that are true between the truths that can be shared are the only real truths that exist. And that's
because ultimately, the truth that can be named, the truth that can be said, the truth that can be spoken is not the truth. Because the truth resides above all that. It is far beyond any words, any thoughts, anything like that. It is transcendental. It is so high up that when it penetrates you, you will feel divine grace in your entire body. And that's me crazy talk. But Jacob, take it from like the scientific perspective of it.
Hold up. We're talking about before is the exact fault that exists in both science and religion. How does one science, one specific instrument, ever think they could slightly capture what is happening, considering the instrument itself is a part of what is happening? You see what I'm saying? How do we ever collect enough information about what is generating the information to complete our model on the information generation? Unless we understand the exact baseline code for what's generating the information that we're experiencing. And in the same way, how can someone expect to create a context for this experience, answer the question of what is life and the true depths of faith, and have a complete answer to that? How can someone even express, right, what is unexpressible? And it's not a possibility. It's only in us collectively coming together and sharing the experience of that and finding what is connected between that shared experience that we'll be able to understand how to amplify that and how to take that to the next level, right?
So true. And it's actually a Rumi quote that I was saying. The truth that can be named or said or talked about is not ultimately the truth. So, and understand that the truth is far, 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 far away from the concept that your mind can have. Understand that the truth that you perceive is only through the limitation of your mind, but the truth is infinite and your mind is finite.
Every word and idea and conceptualization you put of the experience having puts you farther away from the truth, which is uncontextualized. It is completely a state of change, and you can't contextualize it. So all these religions giving names and giving direct need,
100%.
It's just adding all these additional barriers to the actual.
He's trying to hold the water. He's trying to hold the water again. You're beautiful, man. Thank you so much for sharing that moment with me. I mean, Jacob, I think this is the first podcast of something that's going to impact a lot of people. So thank you for our first listeners. I don't know who you are, but I know the essence of who you are, and I know that essence is freaking powerful, is freaking blissful, is freaking peaceful. So act like it. Act like the warrior of love and light that you are. Thank you for listening to me. Thank you. I love you all, and have a good night. See you next week. Peace out.
Sign out. Have a good one. Sayonara. Much love. See you another time. This is why we do it.